Okay, and here we go. So what problem is this project trying to address? So the original motivation is entrenchment problems with DAOs. DAOs are supposed to be decentralized, but the governance often isn't. In fact, most of the time it isn't. And there's two problems. One, I call explicit control. So a party can purchase a stake large enough to gain effective control. That's, by the way, structural. If you have tokens and you just have one token, one vote, that's going to be present. The other is, which is in many ways a bigger problem, is implicit control, which is the bulk of whole token holders are passive, arguably rationally so. That means they don't vote, they don't work on they're not participating. There's lots of reasons for that. The classic reasons, paradox of voting. The chance of my vote having an influence are really, really small. It's costly to vote. Why should I do it? The Jensen-Meckling problem, which plays a major role in this project, is many of you know what that is. If I'm not the 100% owner of a project, um, if I make effort, the benefits of my effort flow partly to others. So I'm under incentivized. And this is a general problem. If you look at corporate law articles, this is one of the agency problems that's on center stage. And we try to fix that in corporations by giving managers contracts and things like that, but it's very imperfect. Also, many people are portfolio investors. Um, so you own a portfolio. Are you going to spend a lot of time helping Ford when you also have General Motors and Tesla in your portfolio? Okay, so that's the problem. A lot of this is rational. Um, so then we end up with a small group of active holders having effective control. And I can go into some of the data later if you want to look at it, but this is widely observed and it's strikingly true. Okay, a lot of these crypto projects, 5% of people are voting and it's the same people over and over again. That's a little bit of a summary, but that's true. Okay, so both of these, a lot of these papers have, titles like, "Is decentralization an illusion?" Okay, well, yeah, it looks largely like that. So what's the high level view of the solution or the proposed solution is we create auction-based control, or at least we have an option of auction-based control. And this is going to be contestable. You can have a new auction anytime you want. It's going to be temporary. If you win the auction, you get control for a temporary period of time. And what you'll end up with, although I can talk later about the implementations of this, some of them are starting, but there's periods of temporary control by a single party are possible, but they're going to be interspersed with periods of the regular mechanism, which often is some kind of voting. Um, and this, by the way, just to preview this creates voting has a lot of problems. Some people on this Zoom are experts at this. And if something goes wrong, you can have a period of temporary control, fix the voting problem, and then revert to the voting. Why? Because we like voting for certain reasons. Okay. So that's going to be an aspect of this. Now, this is very important. Winning the auction doesn't depend, the way the mechanism is set up, we're going to discuss the mechanism in detail. Winning the auction does not depend on owning or controlling any tokens. You can have no tokens and win the auction. Okay, now this is different from corporate control contests, takeovers, tender offers, and it generalizes. Having this mechanism creates a different property rule for corporations. It's radically different. So you have like Tesla. How are you going to take over from Elon Musk? Well, in this situation, Elon Musk, doesn't matter how many shares he has, if he loses the auction, he's out. He's out, he's not controlling the company anymore. So nobody in this scheme ever can control a company by holding shares. Okay, that's a radically different idea, but it's not by any means a new idea. Henry George had this idea with respect to land. William Vickery stated the general version of this, of which this auction mechanism is a specific example. William Vickery wanted to have basically continuous auctions for a lot of different assets. Okay. Now, another thing about this is one problem we'll talk about is empty voting. That's where you have votes, but you don't have an economic interest. There's lots of ways to do that. This occurs really frequently in corporate settings. There's a vote comes up, people borrow shares. Okay, so they ultimately don't have They're just borrowing them. They don't suffer the economic consequences, but they can vote. Every time there's a major vote, we have massive borrowing of shares. And of course, so that's a problem because why? It can make the outcomes arbitrary. Okay, we'll come back later. In this mechanism, it doesn't matter because votes don't matter. You have to win the auction. Okay. So now what are we trying to, well, first of all, what's the scope of this? This is very important. It's what I would call economic DAOs. And what's that? There's two requirements. There's a governance token that's publicly traded. Okay. And the most important one is the market cap of the token is representative of the value of the enterprise. This is easy to believe for things that are commercial. They're kind of commercial, like Maker or Sky, Maker DAO or Sky, Uniswap, things like that. It's pretty much commercial. There's fees. Now, maybe we can't pay them because of regulation right away. But this is much broader because if you have, charity DAOs, social networking DAOs, what is the market value of those represent? It represents how much people want to participate. And so in some sense, it might represent the value of the enterprise quite accurately. That has to be true. Now, if this is not true, then this whole set of ideas that we're talking about is not applicable. Another really important point that often is missed in studies of DAO governance is the community includes potential token holders, not just the current ones. I have a new idea. I can use the capital and structure of some existing DAO. I'm going to change it a lot. And if the market value goes up, if I change it, what does that mean? It might mean that the people that previously were in it don't want to be in it anymore, but there's people out there for whom it has higher value. This is very different than a national government. National governments, we're kind of stuck with, to a certain extent, we're stuck with the people in the country. I mean, they can leave, but it's very costly. So that's a different problem. Okay, this is more like a local a situation where we have cities and I can move between cities if I don't like the government and taxes. Now it's more like that. It's important to keep that in mind. So the auction mechanism in effect allows potential token holders to vote, people that aren't token holders now, but would be if we changed what we were doing. Okay, so what are the goals? Okay. So the token value, we're going to use that. And this is the reason why being an economic DAO is critical. We're going to use the token value as a strong entry point for our mechanism is going to rest on the token value. And it's critically important that that value represents the value of the enterprise. Okay. All right. There's two major ideas that we're going to try to do or aim at. One is we want the mechanism to create the business plan that creates the highest token value. We'd like to have that. That's one desideratum. A second one, which is we want the mechanism to only allow those who create and implement the plan to cover their costs, including a return to capital, a good return to capital on their time. We want the surplus to flow to the other token holders, who generally are Jensen Meckling free riders. They're not doing anything. They're not involved in this project. A lot of them are not involved in any part of it. Now, at this point, when I give these talks, I often ask the audience, how many people are Jensen Meckling free riders? What does that mean? You have a stock, you're not participating in the government, you're not really paying attention to it, or you have an index fund. You have the S&P 500 index fund. Have you researched all 500 companies? Are you actively engaged in voting for? Okay, so I ask the question, and most of the time everyone raises their hand. Okay, well, the thing is, the Jensen Meckling free riders are going to be heroes under this new mechanism. You're going to be a hero. And this new mechanism is going to protect you. In fact, it's going to put you in a much better position than almost any other current investment scenario in the world. Okay. So this is going to be, I'm trying to make this exciting for you. Okay. All right. Now the thing, why would we do that? Why would we allow the surplus to flow to these people who aren't doing any work? It's because this results in the maximum ex ante startup value of the project. Why? Because we're essentially allowing the people that originally invested and their successors to get the benefits of future innovations. If I start a project, its value includes, in a social sense, the benefit of future innovations that spin off of this project. That market value in the beginning, under economics, we want it to represent that. And this is how we're going to do it. The people that are successors of the original people are going to get the benefits of the future innovations. And that's going to maximize the value at startup to the point, not just maximize it for no reason, it's maximizing what it should be. If we don't do this, there's going to be valuable projects that never get started. And there's going to be a big loss for society. Okay, so you, the Jensen Meckley free riders, you are the good guys. Okay, you're really important, and we need to get this money to you. It's vital. And of course, this is not just true at startup. It's true at any point in the DAO's value. When I the value now, I'm looking to the future. Okay, all right. So okay, all right. So now there's a. I'm going to skip to pictures to explain this. Okay, so how does the actual auction mechanism work? When somebody makes a bid, and remember, anybody can make a bid. They don't have to have tokens. The bid consists of three things. Here's the value of the DAO at the time they make their bid. The price at time zero is the economy. I did too much economics, right? So, all right, so that's the initial price. The bidder is going to promise a certain price, that they're going to reach a certain price by doing their project. Okay, now the paper we call that S, but V for value. Okay, so they're going to promise that they're going to create all this additional value here. Now, this is not the social value, because why? Because the bidder, you're going to have costs. They're going to have costs. So the social value, so the cost is this red box here. So the white box and the gray box are, in this picture, are the social value. Now, the red box is going to be different in the second picture, but right now I just want to make that point. So they're going to claim they can reach a certain token value. They're also going to claim part of the surplus. That's this blue box. So the second thing in their bid is they're going to make a surplus claim. Now, in this case, they have to do that to cover their cost. They can't make the surplus claim. It's not going to work. Okay. Then this is what's this green piece. This green piece is because they already own some tokens. They own the quantity TB, Q is the total tokens. They own some fraction TB, okay, T sub B. That's their toehold. T stands for, this is their toehold. And so if they actually produce this value, their own holdings are going to go up they're going to get this green part just because they're already holding tokens. Now we're going to force them to tell us how many tokens they have. Okay. And this is going to be the hardest implementation part, because if they hide, what happens if they hide? Well, what's their bid going to be? It's going to be the white box plus the gray box. And what is that? That is the amount of surplus that's going to you, the Jensen Meckley people out there, the passive people. That's what they're getting, the white box and the gray box. And that's going to be what they're going to bid about in the auction. The person who wins the auction is the person that's going to claim to deliver the most surplus to you. Isn't this getting better and better as we're going? Are you getting happier and happier? Okay. And so if they disguise this green part, then they're going to cheat, because the white part, if we push this green part out, then we just have this blue box R here, and the white part would look a lot bigger. But that's a lie, because part of it's going to them and it's not going to you. And we want to deliver it to you. See this? Okay. All right. All right. So in this case, we've attained the first best. Why? Because, well, assuming we get the best business plan, and the game theory means that we will. Okay. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but it's a standard second price auction. The bidders are going to choose their best project, best in the sense of producing the most surplus here. They're going to bid their true value of what they think they can reach. And that's, a classic game theory result. Okay. That works really well in the auction mechanism. But we also want to try to deliver all of this surplus, all the part outside the red box over here. We want to deliver that to you. In this picture, it works. But generally in the auction mechanism, and this is a classic problem in kind of a game theory, auction theory problem, is this is surplus extraction. Sadly, there's no way that we know currently to guarantee getting all the surplus. So things usually are going to look like this. Why? Because the second price auction. So it might be that the second highest bidder, that their costs went out to here, and they drop out at this point. So the highest bidder can get this extra part that used to be part of the white part. The highest bidder can get this. Unless what? Unless we have let's say we have tons of bidders and we have a continuum. They bid, and there's a continuum, the real line. Well, then that's going to push us back to the first picture. Okay. If somebody's going to bid, if the person with the next lowest cost, it was infinitesimally bigger than this, they're going to bid up to that point and force the highest bidder into this situation. That's what we want. To get that, what do we have to have? We have to have a really good capital market, and we have to be lucky to some extent too. A really good capital market with tons of bidders, many of whom are very capable, So the capital market is really going to matter for this to be successful. That's another major thing. We already identified two implementation problems here. One is the danger that the people hide their toehold position. And the second is if the capital market's not good, that's not going to work that well. Okay, so it's going to depend on the capital market. Okay, now what else are we going to do?
So, Jeff, since you said that, to just interrupt you,
Yes.
what if one of the participants in the auction is Alameda Research, who's uniquely positioned to benefit via insider trading on their own platform by changing the rules of your DAO?
Yeah, so one thing is we can't, like any kind of takeover mechanism, we can't deal with externalities. Okay, well, like antitrust. Okay, let's suppose that this combination is going to work well because we're creating a monopoly. We take the, we're going to, the person that's the bidder already owns another DAO that's competing with this one. Okay, well, it's going to look like it's the most lucrative project, right? And you out there might not be that unhappy because you're going to benefit from the monopoly profits. Okay, but this is a social problem. That's just an example of this. And this is kind of a general problem. So we still have to have antitrust enforcement. We're not creating like heaven here. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm trying to answer it in an abstract way.
No, I mean, it does answer the answer may not have been optimum, but like there's nothing which is optimum, right? There's no feeling.
Yeah, so
thank you.
This is there's no, like, we're economists, there's a dismal science. Like,
yeah.
I when I was in law school, I enrolled and became a PhD candidate in economics. So I thought I could solve all these problems, right?
Right.
And then, then there's the theory of the second best. Pretty soon I'm the skeptic, kind of like Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. Oh, bother. Like, this is another depressing. All right. I love economics, though. Don't get me wrong. All right, we're going to do two other things here. We're going to require deposits from the bidder. And the deposits, I'm going to cut to the chase here a little bit because we have limited time. One deposit is going to guarantee that they're going to, if they fail to reach this price, they're going to pay the difference to you. Okay. They're going to do a deposit that covers at least the gray box and the white box. It's a lot of money. Okay. And if they don't reach the thing, they're going to pay you. And you know what this means for you? You can't lose. Either they do the project and your token value goes up, or they pay you. It's getting better and better, isn't it?
So Jeff, that's like a breakup fee?
It's beyond that. They start the project and they have, let's say it lasts a year. Now the deadline, they can have there's another auction. If we get to the deadline, say you have a year deadline of a control, it all it does is it creates a second auction. They can try to win that auction too. They could have control for a long time, but if they don't reach this value, they're going to have to pay you. And who is you? It's the people that own the tokens at the beginning of the auction. It's not the current token holders. It's you. You're the Jensen McLean free riders, and we're taking care of you. So this is something that you will not see anywhere else. In most situations, the Jensen McLean free riders are out there. There's a lot of people with better information about the corporation. They're going to walk away with lots of the surplus. Now we're changing that. We're giving you possibly all the surplus. Isn't this cool? Okay, and why are we doing that? Because it's socially valuable. Because we're going to get the right startup values. We're going to have a better we're going to have better innovation. We're going to be able to, our computer science students are going to leave after their second month of their PhD program. And, I already have this thing at Stanford. Students call you up in the middle of the term. Professor, I'm not going to be able to finish the term. Why not? Well, my startup got funded by A16Z. This is undergraduate, right? Okay. We'll get more of that. Okay. All right. All right. So I'm sorry. All right. So, and then we're going to have a second deposit, which is basically going to insure you against losses. Like, what if this is a malicious person? And there's a lot of malicious things. There's a lot of things they can do. Because they don't have to have any tokens. They don't have to have any ownership to win the auction. What if they just buy a whole pile of puts on the value of the stock, and then they get control and they tank the sucker? Well, what we do is we have a big deposit that they have to pay every dime that they do. To who? To you. So you're sitting here, you're going to get the gain one way or the other. The gain they claimed, you're going to get that gain one way or the other, and you're basically insured against losses. Now, I'm kind of simplifying it a little bit, so I'm going fast. And this is something that makes this better than takeover mechanism. One thing is, if you look at the corporate law, the takeover mechanism for corporate law has been basically neutered. It's basically you have poison pills. The insiders can kind of block takeovers. It's very weak. The only place it isn't weak is with mergers. Okay, you can merge out. If you can get some of the takeover effect there. Now, why did that happen? Well, part of it's political. I mean, there's this huge literature on this, right? Part of it's political, like, insiders and corporations are, they don't want to lose control, right? They want to keep their little bailiwick going. Part of it also is people are afraid of people doing bad things. So the characterization, barbarians at the gate, is one characterization you may have seen of the, 1980s, the raiders, right? They're like pirates coming in and destroying everything. Well, the thing is in this mechanism, they can't do that successfully. Value destroying strategies don't work because they deposit in the crypto sense, they actually deposit this money. And if this goes down and there's a loss, they've already deposited the money. They lost their money, right? So the whole thing of treasury raids on DAOs, it's not going to, you can't use this mechanism to do a treasury raid. It doesn't work. Okay. All right. So, so those are the two deposits. Now, we want to make this relatively short. So these next two slides, we kind of summarize some of the features. Okay. So what have we seen so far? Well, this gets rid of entrenchment. That's over. The fact that you have implicit or explicit control doesn't matter. You have to, an auction can defeat you. Okay. Now notice that if you in fact have explicit or implicit control, and you actually have the best project, you're not going to lose the auction, right? It's not, it might be these people. I mean, a lot of people that have explicit control are founders that are really smart people and really successful. And maybe they're the best person. Like think of MakerDAO. So you have Rune Christensen. I'm going to come back to that later and talk about it. Okay, I'm sorry, I just raised it. We get rid of empty voting. Voting doesn't matter. Empty voting doesn't matter. Okay. And empty voting, just take a little detour. Empty voting has a lot of problems. First of all, you can use empty voting to do value destruction. You take a big put position, you get empty votes, and you tank something. Okay. Second of all, there's a general problem, which is and this is you and Black who originally coined the word empty voting. This is in the corporate context. Corporate context, we have a lot of empty voting. Voting outcomes might be decided by hidden warfare among company insiders and major investors, each employing financial technology to acquire votes. Everything depends on how many empty votes you can accumulate. Adroitness in such financial technology may increasingly supplant the role of merit in determining the control of corporations. Okay, well, that's the problem. Now, of course, empty voting could also be a means of a good person who is going to add value. And so it's this kind of complex thing, but it's problematic, at least to some extent. Okay, going back to where we were. All right. It selects the best way forward. You get the highest surplus project, social surplus, highest social surplus project. Okay, it tends to distribute surplus to the existing token holders, maximizing investment value, including its startup. Excepting this is going to be imperfect. And you can read my paper. I cite all the game theory literature, and there's situations in which you can extract all the surplus, but they don't even come close to applying in the kind of environment that we're talking about here. We avoid value destruction. Already talked about that. Now, another thing is for DAOs, we'd like to make this code feasible. We'd like to have as much of this, we'd like this auction to work by code. Okay, so we do things like, usually instead of having deposits, you'd have options. You'd force the bidder to take on option positions, and these deposits are the equivalent. They create the equivalent result of options, but deposits we can do. In our sleep, the people on this Zoom, like people like David, they do this in their sleep. We're designing stuff. We're Stellar, the people in Stellar. Yeah, no problem. We can have deposits in our system. Duh. Okay. So, but why do we don't want options? Because options have counterparties. Then we have counterparty risk. We don't have that if we have deposits. So we're making it code feasible. The biggest problem is hiding the toehold position. That's hard to deal with. And the paper discusses this at length. What kind of things could you do? You can do things, we can go into that later. I want to get the basic piece out here. Now, this thing we didn't talk about, what about after the auction's over? What are the incentives? Let's go back to the pictures. Okay, so the auction is over. I'm in control. Imagine yourself in control. If I push the dollar of the project up by $1, this is a Jensen-Meckling question. What do I get? Well, I get two things. I own this part. I get the dollar on this part because I own it. This part, I'm on the line. I have a liability that if I don't get up here, I lose this. So then when I go up and it goes up $1, I've reduced my liability by $1. Overall, what's happened? I'm getting the whole return of the project. All of it, 100%. I'm either getting it on the shares I own or I'm reducing my liability 1-for-1 when the value goes up, and that adds up to 100%. That's the end of Jensen-Meckling.
And
I'm going to behave. Go ahead, Lisa.
how would you anticipate that proportionally for most projects, or is it possible? I mean, would liabilities for somebody who was trying to contest for control typically be much larger than the potential rewards that they would get, or like how would that be balanced?
Okay, so what we have here is if they really think they can get to this value. Okay, now this is going to go into some complexity that's talked about in the paper. If it was true that we had a market where the only thing that determined value was the actual project, this would work fine. They really think they can get to this value. And if to some extent they think there's no risk in that, then they're not really taking a risk by doing this. Now, what if they don't have the money for making the deposits? That's going to be likely in a lot of cases. Why? We have some really smart person. They're 22 years old. They have the correct idea. They don't have any money. So what do we have to do? Well, I don't know if there's any VCs on this thing here, but yeah, we call you, right? Okay. So we have to get this again, the reason we have to have good capital markets. In that case, we have to get a team of people, some of whom are providing money. And of course, they have to trust that the entrepreneur is correct. And not only that, we also have the situation that let's think about crypto. Do you think, I mean, like if you look at fluctuations in crypto prices, what's going to happen? What if Bitcoin goes down and Ethereum goes down and I have some DAO? What happens to the market? Well, the DAO goes down. Why? Well, not because of anything I did. Had nothing to do with the project. So there's also this other risk, this other market risk. And this is not a new problem. This is the same problem we have with startups. It's exactly this, right? The stock market is sitting there and all this stuff and the president and the Congress. And we haven't been able to get rid of the president of the Congress. It's like it's been here for 250 years, and it has an effect on what they do. They do things, and it has an effect on my project, right? And I don't I like having president of Congress. I like being in the United States, but the point. So this in the end of the paper, we discuss how you deal with this. It's the same way you deal with it. Again, we have capital market people that can take the risk, that can offload the market risk. Okay, all right, but that's a kind of complicated thing. But we do it all. We do it now. Okay, but again, you have to have a good capital market to do that. All right, so
Oh,
let's go
Jeff,
back. Go ahead.
just on the deposit, I'm thinking, where would this deposit be kept and who would have control over the deposit, right? And I'm thinking here, because if the winning bidder gets control of the DAO, and in any way the deposit is controlled by the DAO, it could be a way of this winning bidder just to committing fraud and extracting all the
Right.
value from the DAO, right? So
Yeah.
how would you think about the deposit?
We would talk to you at Stellar, right? Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to do, I mean, we have deposits all the time, right? So we're depositing in a smart contract. Okay, we have it on Stellar because we have a good, Stellar is our favorite layer one, right? You know, and yeah, and it's controlled by code. Okay, now could the code get screwed up? Could somebody hack it? Then we have to talk to David too, right? We have to talk to, we have to figure out how to make this, is it 100% foolproof? No, but we do it all the time. We have deposits. Now, the auction mechanism itself is standing behind the control party rating the treasury or rating the deposits. Okay. Um, but we obviously have to be careful about how we design it. Okay. Especially it has to be out of the control of the control party, right? We want to run it by code. The code, is looking at you have some oracles, they're picking up the prices. We get to a certain point, the value went down, it executes the formulas in my paper or better ones that people invent later. Okay. All right. So it looks like that. So we would be talking to you. I would be asking you this question and David. Okay. Right. Okay. See, I told you I could turn the answers to questions around into asking the audience, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So all right. So what else? Okay. So we get rid of the Jensen-Meckling problem. And that's by the way, big. And this problem is like tons of law review articles are talking about this problem, right? How we fix it. Can we give management contracts? And it's imperfect, right? Okay. All right. Now we can avoid the problems with voting. Okay, we already talked about this. This creates a guardrail for voting process. We like the voting process, but every once in a while it goes off into the deep end. Of course, we never see that in national politics. We never see politics going off the deep end, right? But in DAO, I'm just joking, right? All right. So it allows us to reset or reform what's going on during the control period. So maybe we like the voting process, but it goes off the deep end. What happens? The DAO value goes down. We have an auction. We still like the vote. We still like the vote. What does that mean? People like voting. So that part of the value of the DAO is the voting. People are in the DAO because they like voting. They think it's, and that's part of the market value of it. So then the auction entrepreneur comes in, resets the voting process. If they do it right, the token value goes right back up to where it was. They claim to put that value back in, and then they're done. They succeeded. They walk away with a success. And you get the money. You get the Jensen, you're the free riders, right? All right. All right. So then we can also do this, and this relates to the MakerDAO Sky situation. So what happened in MakerDAO? The classic idealism. Read the MakerDAO white paper. Yeah, we're going to put this together. We have a foundation. The foundation is going to disappear after putting the project together, and then it's going to be a pure DAO, and it's going to be Web3, and it's going to be heaven. So what actually happened? The foundation disappears in 2021. Now, some people think it disappeared because they were afraid of the Biden administration regulation. But then, Rune Christensen, who's the major co-founder and has a lot of the biggest token share, comes in and says, yeah, we could succeed at the idealism. We're disappearing we're shutting the foundation down. I'm the CEO, I'm done. A few months later, a year later, he uses his 13% token position to re-centralize it. And then he creates Sky. They restructure the whole thing with MakerDAO. Why? because it originally had this really simple collateralized lending thing using crypto, but pretty soon there's all these other projects you want to do that involve treasury bonds and all stuff like that. And that doesn't work well in the original structure, but it can work well if you fix it. And that's what they did. They fixed it. They re-centralized it. And then what did Rune Christian said? Well, we're going to fix it, and then we're going to let go of it, and we're going to be back in heaven. Do you believe that? Well, so what's the point? Well, duh, like corporations, everything, even people, sometimes you need a major overhaul and rebirth, right? You have to change what you're doing, right? Radically. So this mechanism is a great way to do that. We have the voting thing, but now what's going to happen? Rune Christensen's going to have to win the auction. He may not be the best person to do this. He may not have the best, now he might have the best project, but this mechanism finds the person that is going to do it best. Okay, that's it, if everything works the way, okay. Undervaluation situations, okay, so we see a lot of this. 2017, a bunch of projects start, they get Ethereum from investors. What happens? The Ethereum goes up like, a big multiple. They have all this money and they don't have ideas for the money. So we see the DAO trading below the treasury value. Okay. Well, there's two different things that could be true. There's several different things to be true. It could be they just don't have good ideas and they're just going to waste all the money over time. Another is they have a really good idea and they haven't conveyed it properly to the market. Well, the auction mechanism is going to take care of this. If they don't really have good ideas, somebody's going to win an auction, and people are going to compete, and we're probably going to drive the value up in the auction to close to the treasury value, and then we're going to liquidate it. We're going to give the Ethereum to you. So this is a great day. Okay, we're going to liquidate it. We're going to give it to you, and then you can invest it in something else. Okay. Now, if it's the case that they actually have a really good project, then they can win the auction, or they can get VCs to help them, and they can win the auction. They can overbid more than the treasury value. If they have a good project, it better be worth more than the treasury. Okay. All right. And now the last thing I'm going to talk about before I'm going to open it up completely is regulation. And let me pick the right. All right, here we go. All right, we already kind of talked about this. This creates massive investor protection. Of who? You. Us. Believe me, I'm Jensen Meckling all over the place. Okay. We're protected against losses in the control periods. Okay. We're guaranteed the gains promised by the control party. Okay. There's protection outside control periods. Things go wrong, the auctions can step in and bam, get rid of incompetent parties or malicious parties. These protections don't depend on the mass of investors being informed or competing with parties who are. And there's nothing wrong with being passive. It's completely rational. It's also incredibly valuable to have passive investors. People are putting money in index funds. That's where we're getting money to make our capital market and economy work. Darn it. We're good people. Okay. We're doing something socially valuable. Okay, now, regulation. Who is regulation trying to protect primarily? It's us, passive investors who aren't informed, either rationally or not. Well, can you find this kind of protection in any regulatory scheme that you can think of anywhere in the world? Okay, so this leads to further arguments, okay? So we have a case for being treated differently by regulators, okay? A lot of regulation might be largely irrelevant. Now, part of this is also driven by DAOs and blockchain projects, crypto projects in general, have a lot of transparency. Bitcoin, we see everything that's going on, right? It's a public ledger. And those two things combined argue for a very different regulation scheme. Now, we still might want to have disclosure. Why? Primarily for the potential control parties. We want to have information. We might also require the control parties to create the kind of disclosures that we, at least to some extent, that we already require. That's not going to be a problem. They're centralized. DAOs, the way they are now, can't comply with regulation, with the disclosures, because what do we disclose? There's nobody running it. We can't disclose things about the people that are running it. Okay, so we can combine this with Hester Peirce, this idea that we should have a sandbox, allow for experimentation. This is a great place to experiment. Why? Because we'll arguably, and this is a tricky point, have we improved decentralization or not here by doing this mechanism? Well, on the one hand, we're creating control, which is the opposite of decentralization, but it's contestable, it's temporary, it's not permanent, and we're defeating a situation where controls are already entrenched. Because that's the argument for this being better at decentralization. It also might, help democracy in the sense that we can put voting schemes in, things that have participation elements that people really like and drive the value up. And we have a guardrail in case something goes wrong. That's going to help us. That's going to help people like Ashish and other people here design things. And the people, Stellar, everyone, we can design, it gives us a tool to design something where we can have the kind of democracy that we like without some of the dangers. Okay, I'm going to stop because there's 10 minutes left. And I'm going to see if people have questions. There's a lot of things we can talk about. We can talk about the toll thing. We are, by the way, this is an academic idea, so there's no proprietary interest in it that I have or Stanford. So anybody can do it. I'm aware of some people trying it. There's a project in Switzerland and Germany where we're going to try to do this with an investment DAO. There's a person in Canada at the University of Waterloo who's doing this as an academic project. It's actually creating DAOs with a contestable control mechanism. I'm working on a project myself, or I'm part of a project that's a startup that will have a component that's a DAO inside a bigger structure. And that one, since I'm sitting there at the table, we can do things like we can fix the toll reporting problem by having identification inside the DAO. The problem we have in crypto is that we don't know who anybody is. We couldn't tell, like if somebody's trying to hide some position, they're hiding behind public addresses. We don't know who they are. And furthermore, they can use the equivalent of empty voting. So every time there's empty voting, there's two things. One person has the votes and not the economic interest. The other person has the economic interest and not the votes. So we can have hidden ownership, which is exactly what I want to do if I want to cheat this mechanism. I have hidden ownership. I'm not recorded as a voter, but I actually have an economic interest that's hidden. And I'm going to cheat you because it's going to look like my bid is better. My bid is supposed to go to you, not to me, but part of it's going to go to me, but I've hidden it. Okay. So, that's where we are. And it's 8 more minutes left. So I'm leaving it completely open for whatever you want to talk about.
Yep, I've got some questions here, but I want to defer to any of the guests who might have questions before I jump in.
I'm going to go to a
Yes, thank
personal
you.
picture here. I can always go back to the slides.
Well, maybe just to kind of go ahead and transition. And first of all, Jeff, thank you. I didn't realize we were getting academic presentation and also you've just got a great sense of humor. So that was really an enjoyable experience and such an interesting idea. Just given the audience, I'm wondering if you were to advise a mature DAO that's really struggling with voting, just as an issue, participation, those types of things. Do you foresee a capacity to transition into this type of framework, or do you think it kind of takes a complete overhaul, really starting from the ground up?
So I think let's talk about the startup project I'm working on. So would I put the contestable control mechanism in the beginning? No. Why? Because we haven't tested it. And this is an academic idea. Academic ideas, even if they're successful, they end up being implemented almost always in a different way. And so I would want to see it. So in the project I'm working on, we wrote this in the white paper originally, and then we took it out. We're afraid to put this in the white paper because people are going to look at this. And you have this one nutty person in your project that has this idea, and we don't want our money here. We don't this is too risky, okay, which I agree with actually. But so in our project, what we're going to do is we're going to wait and see we're going to see how it works in the other implementations. We also have to wait till the project becomes mature enough. Why? Because we have to have a good capital market for this to work.
Yeah.
We might put in we might have training wheels on this. We might have overrides for who the bidders are, temporarily at least. Now, if I'm advising a DAO, they're paying me to advise them. I might have a lot of other ideas. Obviously, I love this idea, but I think it has to be developed more. And we have to show, I think it will work in at least some environment. I think it's only going to work in some environments. Obviously, like capital markets, some applications, it's going to work better than others. I think we have to see what plays out there before I wouldn't, even in the project I'm working on, I wouldn't do it right away.
Sure.
And the white paper actually said that, but people said, wait, look, we don't want to have this in there. It's like, it's a real world asset project. People are going to be focused on that. Like, don't have this is a cool, okay, you get the picture. I agree with it. I agree with them.
Yeah. And then also just to touch on this, given the crowd, have you had any exposure with regulators about this idea, either in terms of corporate situations or kind of native blockchain projects? I'm just
Well,
curious.
I mean, I've had a lot. Obviously, I've talked about it with people that are regulators that have that background.
Hmm.
And, it is potentially exciting. We didn't, I didn't, the people that are interested in this, including me, we did not approach, say, Hester Peirce
Hmm.
because it's not time. Like we want to have actual projects where we've done it. We want to do it we're going to do it in Europe. Why? Europe, well, Switzerland.
Hmm.
Switzerland has a stable government. And independent of Trump and all this stuff, the United States does not have a stable government. Every 4 years, the president changes, and then they change things like crypto. Crypto just got whipsawed by Trump to Biden to Trump. And in this case, some people would perceive the bad guys are the Bidens and Trump, right? And Switzerland has, the executive is 7 people that work by consensus. And everything is stable, like regulation is stable. And so we do it there. And then we come back to the United States and we come back to Hester Peirce and say, look, we did this in Switzerland. We want to do this in the United States, but we are afraid. We need a safe harbor. We need something from you to do this innovation in the United States. And now we've shown that it could work. That's what we want to do. I wouldn't want to talk to Hester Peirce until we show that it works. Somewhere where we can do it, where it's not going to get shut down when the president changes.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
Well, we've got 3 minutes left, and we did promise to be prompt and respectful of people's time. Again, any final questions before we close this up?
And by the way, if you want to I love talking about this. I could talk for hours and hours and hours, and everyone pretty soon, so I have this experience, I talk long enough, and all of a sudden I notice everybody's asleep. I can talk until we reach somnambulance. Right. So I'd be happy to talk about it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Outside the thing.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure folks will follow up. And I know, I think we sent out a link and we'll send another one to the actual paper. But thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Paul, anything you want to add?
No, just express my thanks and to everybody on here, members, future members, potential members. Keep a lookout. We are going to be doing these monthly, and we'll send out a notice for next month's as well. So thank you everybody for joining us, and it's your support that helps us be able to do events like this.